There it is. First live period of the 2023 recruiting season is in the books. He's Josh Tec. I'm Justin Young. Welcome to the Fast Break. We talk about whatever we want to talk about right here. I don't really know how to introduce this thing other than the fact that we've been to some events. We've seen some things. We've had a lot of conversations, a lot to talk about on the recruiting front. Because I think recruiting, Josh, it evolves so much that it requires a long conversation every single day just to understand what the freak we're doing, man.
Yeah, I'm still trying to process it. I know a lot of the AAU coaches who are very plugged in and very tapped into how things work. They're still trying to process it all. It's very different than your older brother's recruiting cycle. It's very different than what we've come to know recently and kind of what's been the standard. So I think everybody's still adjusting, like you said.
Yeah. Well, last year was to me a little bit of a raise the red flag in the spring. I mean, I've never seen it that dire. And anybody that's involved in youth basketball said the same thing. Even coaches like, yeah, we're not going out. We have guys on campus. This year was a little bit better where I feel like a lot of schools got a lot done. And I don't know if the calendar, and I'd have to look at it. I don't know if it's further back in the calendar, right? Where I feel like, yeah, like, so this weekend coming up is the 28th to the 30th. And so I don't know if it's just, it's the calendar or what, but this year did feel a little bit more healthy on the recruiting side of things as far as guys being out all over the country. But man, I still feel like the recruiting calendar needs a facelift. It really does, because, so there were a lot of schools where, I talked to a lot of head coaches like, yeah, I'm not on the road. We got a guy on campus, or I've got to leave Saturday afternoon to get back to campus. We have a visit, for Sunday. And like that happened a lot with transfer guys. And I've always said this, listen, I've always made this argument that we need to move the recruiting calendar back. Maybe we only have one live period in April, or if we have two, we have the last week in April and the first weekend in May. And then we have like a definitive cutoff date for the portal visits and portal recruiting, and a clear start time for the high school recruiting, and not let them blend together and have a little separation. So I still think there needs to be some tweaking from the NABC and the NCAA to find like a perfect medium for everything that's going on. But college guys like, listen, I don't want to be on the road. I don't want to be having recruiting going on every single weekend too. So I'm sure there's a healthy medium out there.
In that vein, I think a good idea would be to let's keep the live period that would be next weekend, the one that's coming up, and then let's push another one back to the middle of this. Let's take this first one, take that out completely, move it over to the middle of May after the transfer portal deadline, like maybe around when we typically run Bob Gibbons-ish kind of frame, maybe the weekend after or whatever, and have that be the second live period. So you said push everything back, because that's how recruiting is going. Recruiting is being pushed back. And this weekend, you and I were going on the road, and we talked to a lot of college coaches, a lot of prominent D1, high-level college coaches. And like you said, a lot of them, like, we're saying the same thing. It was like, yeah, I'm out on the road here. We have an assistant in, I don't know, wherever. Like, we have an assistant at Adidas, and then we have our head coach, and then another assistant back on campus, because they're hosting on-campus visits for transfer portal kids. So that really, instead of having 4 coaches out on the road at 4 different locations, or two in Atlanta, they could bounce around to all the different stuff going on, or whatever. Like, it really limits the amount of exposure you can get during this time period, because the transfer portal is the priority for a lot of these schools. Hell, some of these coaches weren't even out on the road at all. And they're like, when you look now on Monday, you say, oh, the transfer to school. Oh, this kid that committed to that school. So it's kind of like, I see what you guys were doing. If you put the pieces together, you kind of see how the recruiting landscape is going.
Well, and you still have the ripple effect of it, right? Where you have a kid maybe like on April 18th that everything is great, but on April 23rd, they got a transfer from somebody, and the kid that was happy on April 18th, on April 23rd is like, well, wait a second. This guy's coming in. He's the same position as me, and I don't want to be here if that guy's coming here. So then you've got to start it all over again. And like, it's just this wild goat rodeo, man, that really doesn't.
That literally happened just a couple weeks ago in a prominent case with Mackenzie Mbako and Duke. Kyle Filipowski announced he's coming back. All these guys are still going into Duke. They have a loaded class coming in. Kyle Filipowski's back. They have a lot of guys returning in that roster. Tyrese Proctor's coming back. So Mackenzie kind of saw the writing on the wall. Actually, I'm just assuming. But he saw the writing on the wall and was like, it might be more beneficial for me to reopen my recruitment. And that's another, 5-star, top 10, top 15 level kid who just opened up his recruitment in the 2023 class. So that just goes, that just sends all those coaches looking to fill a spot over to that kid. He's the new shiny toy out in the market.
I talked to a coach. He said, there was a couple years where there were more live period days in April than there were July for travel teams, which was just fascinating to hear him say that. I was like, oh, he was right. And so here's my proposed calendar. Okay. We have one live period in April, whether it's the last week of April, the first week of May. I get what you're saying about, so we run Bob Gibbons middle of May, but then you're running into graduation. So if I'm a college coach, I'd rather be on campus with my guys who are graduating. It's a fun time.
I get it.
If you work in education, you want to be on campus during that week. It's probably why you do what you do, to see young people have that experience. And so I don't know if that would work. So to me, it's the last week of April is it, or the first week of May. Only one weekend, it's 3 days. Okay. And now this year they opened it up. You can play all day Friday, which is a whole new dialogue. But let them have these 3 full days in April or beginning of May. That's it. June, I didn't like the idea of June adding Scholastic because we're on the non-Scholastic business side of things. So selfishly, and I have complete biases there, that I didn't want that to happen. But I can't deny that it is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal.
I love the June live periods. They're some of my favorite too. So.
Yeah, when they first announced it, I was, grumpy old man as I usually am, and didn't like it. And now I think it's tremendous. I think it's absolutely tremendous.
The June live periods, I don't know. Maybe I should, whatever. The June live periods replace the April live periods as far as
I think you're spot on. I think, but if we're going to do that, then I think we have July to maybe we open that up a little bit more. Okay. And we've got a little bit more.
Make it the whole month.
Well, no, I don't think
I'm playing there, but
I do think that there's more flexibility to opening up more of July and taking advantage of the summertime and doing more stuff there. So I still think there needs to be some evolution. I don't like when people are like, oh, I don't like this. This is dumb, and not have a solution. So that at least is my solution to what we do. And listen, I've done this for multiple decades. Okay. I've done it on the media side, I've done it on the scouting service side, and I've done it on the event side. So I feel like I've got some pretty good perspective as to what works, and talked to a lot of coaches that I feel like they offer up a lot. Josh, we had a lot of conversations, you and I, with coaches, which is always fun. I think in the April period, it's good to see everybody back on the road. It's good to catch up. It's good to talk about seasons. It's good to talk about what guys are thinking about. And I don't know about you, but I thought for sure if I had a bingo card, I thought portal would have been the magic word on the bingo card this year, but it was, but with a caveat, and the caveat was NIL was way bigger of a talking point than the portal. Now the NIL ergo causes the portal to have activity, but NIL was the conversation that I had with every single school this entire weekend, was how much the NIL impact in their recruiting. And I don't know why I was so naive to think that it wouldn't have been, the collectives.
Yeah, no, it's kind of the same trend. It was NIL has been a big hot topic in coaches on campuses and all that stuff. And like you said, it does impact transfers. It does impact recruiting, because it kind of, people are looking out to get paid. So wherever you can go, you can get paid.
I talked to some really good coaches, assistant coaches, head coaches, and they're like, listen, man, I just want to coach. And I knew that with coaching comes recruiting, but in the last 2 or 3 years, I'm having to have real serious business conversations. He's like I can do that, but I'm a basketball coach. I'm a teacher of the sport of basketball. And I want to help lead and develop young men in their late teens, early 20s to become successful in whatever job they go do. And now we're having conversations where now we're a conduit in marketing and advertising and sponsorships. And it's really interesting.
You got to have departments for it now within basketball programs.
Well, one friend of mine said, cool, I saw Villanova has a general manager for basketball. He's like, every team does. He goes, it's called the head coach. The head coach has been the general manager. He's the CEO of our program, and he's having conversations like a big, business conglomerate, and having he was a high major school at a really powerful basketball conference, and it's just such an interesting dynamic where I do wonder, we've seen a lot of guys retire early, and I do wonder, are we going to see this total sea change in the coaching profession on guys and how much they want to even do this business, because it's far less about basketball now? Or when are we going to have more dialogue to formalize or organize or even neutralize some of these NIL conversations? Because right now, and I know this seems to be like a broken record, but man, it is the freaking Wild West in that space. And I was not prepared for how many conversations I had with name, image, and likeness, which also means now it's legal, NIL, which is funny.
Yeah, you do have to be on top of it. Like you saw, I mean, Miami was a great example of it last year. They brought in Nigel Pack on a $400,000 NIL deal, and they made it to the Final Four. Made it to the Final Four. So it's like whoever can really capitalize and really use that to their benefit and kind of manage those business transactions. I thought Jim Larinaga really did a really great job managing that locker room, because he kind of played it loose from what I could tell. I wasn't in there, but like from what you hear on secondhand stories or on other media sources who are more plugged into the college basketball side, you kind of heard him say it's not really going to affect us. We're going to play it loose and we're going to kind of just figure it out as we go. And he did a great job of managing it. So I think you got to have a department that kind of really shows you how to capitalize on NIL, really focuses on that. You got to have those collectives, if you will, those boosters, those fan bases, or whatever you got to do. And then you got to have a coach who can be patient and manage all those egos and manage all the personalities and all that kind of stuff.
I pay attention to everything. I really do. And I really like my friends at Pro Insight. I think they're really good. They're very in depth. They do a really good job of talking to guys. And one thing that I saw, and they were like, what's your dream NIL? And quite frankly, I thought it was a really ridiculous question that we're asking this. But
as far as what company they would like to sponsor them or whatever.
Yeah, we're asking a 16-year-old kid, like, what they don't know. They're like, I don't know, Boost Mobile, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, but then I did like, you know what? That's the nature of where we're at. So I respect them for asking that question, because it's inevitable that these are the conversations that are happening in kind of hush-hush circumstances, maybe just because it was brought to the forefront. And I'm such an old school traditionalist where, like, shit, now, like, we've got like guys they have unlimited visits they can go take. We're back, for forever, for 20 years, you got 5 visits. Where do you want to go? I mean, that was a constant question that I would ask guys. And now they can go, they can take as many as they want. Now, I don't think that it will change much, to be quite frank. I do think we'll see a lot of guys taking some bullshit visits that really don't matter. But
and giving bullshit answers when I ask them, hey, where are you planning on visiting?
Yeah, right. Exactly. But, I was talking to another guy about this yesterday. Geography doesn't matter. Regionality doesn't matter, right? Like, everything's such a short stop that, let's say you're a kid in Florida, and if you maybe you hate the cold weather, you probably would never have considered going to, I don't know, Boston College, right? If you're from Florida. But now, because everything's such a short stay, well, now maybe Boston College seems appealing. Or maybe my girlfriend plays volleyball at Boston College, where I wouldn't have gone there before because I hate cold weather. But now, like, all I got to go there is for 7 months. No problem. I'll go. And so, like, the regionality kind of gets thrown out the window, right? And so everything's on TV. Everything's on, Hulu Plus or ESPN Plus or Fox Sports Plus or Paramount Plus or plus. It's on TV somewhere that your mom can go watch it on TV without having a problem, right? And she doesn't have to make the travel, because she probably hates cold weather. Just because you're cool with doing 7 months, she still doesn't want to do it, but she can watch it at home, on her couch, which is totally fine. I mean, if I'm a college coach right now, man, and if I've been in it for 20 plus years, I think I would really consider moving on to a different profession, me personally, because I don't know. It's just such a
like you said, we've already seen people doing that, like Jay Wright, all these legends, all these really prominent names have kind of moved on since the start of the NIL period. So
those guys can, because they got a lot in the bank and they got trophies, where some guys are like, you know what? I've gone to the tournament 3 times in my 22-year career. I don't know, man. It's a really interesting point of view. But here's my other takeaway from the weekend too, Josh, to keep it kind of moving on, is I don't think the 2024 class at the top is as good as we've seen by comparison to other classes. I think it's got some talent, but I don't think there's anybody. Listen, to be a freshman to come in and compete, we saw this last year in college basketball. It is really freaking hard to step on the hardwood as a freshman in college basketball now. Very, very difficult. This was the oldest tournament that we've had since probably black and white TV, like legit, right? Like the average age of the player. So to be a freshman to come in to think that you're going to play more than 10 minutes a game legitimately is almost a pipe dream unless you go to the right place, you go to the right level, right?
And you have the right defined skill set.
Well, right. And so exactly. So what can I do as a player? And I've said this my entire career. What can I do as a player to put me on the floor as a freshman? What is my thing?
Yeah. You got to have a calling card. You can't just be like,
right. And so listen, if you're only, this is the other thing I said, you are the level in which you hold offers from. So if you don't have a high major offer, you're not a high major player at the time. Now you may have high major talent, but you're not a high major player. I may think that I'm a billionaire, but I don't have $1 billion. Okay, but I have the mindset that I'm a billionaire because I got that swagger to me. But that doesn't.
Well, let's get you your dream NIL deal. Maybe you can be a billionaire.
I should be a billionaire. Dutch Bros Coffee. I'm looking at you. Okay,
is that your dream NIL?
Let's billionaire this boy over here. But I would not be surprised to see if the class of 2024 has an all-time record high for guys that level up, okay? Guys that go even Division II or to a low major, and because you can play, because you can be on the floor, because you can have experience. Thus, look at all the transfers. Like I'm seeing guys who I don't remember who it was. It was like this kid went from a school that has no basketball history to a blue blood. I wish I remember who it was. And I thought to myself, like, that dude wouldn't even get a sniff. Nobody came to watch that guy play in April, probably even July. He probably got a scholarship late. The coach probably saw him in January. They needed to fill a roster spot. They got the right evaluation. He went to the right spot, had a great freshman year. And now all of a sudden he's at a blue blood. Where even a year ago, nobody even gave a shit about going to watch him play.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is, if you can hoop, go take here's been my theme of April so far. Take the offer. Go to who wants you, who legitimately wants you. Don't hang on for too long because all that stuff can dry up really quickly. There's plenty of things that can happen. You can get hurt. Those schools can just find someone else. Those offers can dry up quickly. So even if it's not what you want exactly, go ahead and take the offer and go kill it there. Because these coaches, like we're saying, recruiting is different now. They're recruiting transfers. They're recruiting at different levels. So go kill it against college competition. And that's really going to boost your opportunities. That's going to give you more opportunities to go to a higher level, to transfer to maybe one of your dream schools or whatever.
I have a very good friend of mine who is a very successful entrepreneur. I think he's now in his 8th company. 8. We're the same age. We're mid-40s, 46. He's owned 8 companies. And I've known him my whole life. I love him. He's the smartest guy I know. And I said, what's like how do you do this, man? Like props to you. Like, I feel like I'm an entrepreneur. I feel like I'm really curious. He goes, dude, I take a profit and I keep it moving. Sometimes I can wait a little bit longer for something bigger. There's a parallel here to recruiting, right? Like, I take a profit and I keep it moving. So if a player now thinks of himself as a business, if you will, because of NIL, then take a profit and keep moving. So go somewhere that creates value for yourself as a player and as a team. Okay. Go number one, win. That's always my biggest pet peeve with the portal is that we see like, oh, John Smith averaged 17 points and 5 rebounds and 3 steals. And I go look up there, they won like 6 games. They're like, all right. You're like, you're never mind. I'll save that analogy for offline, but it's like, it's like you got to have some sort of value as a winner, I would think, if I'm a school. So take a profit and keep it moving. So go where you can play. Okay, if this matters to you, if you're in it for like the moment, or ask yourself, am I in it for the long haul, where I would invest in myself, and then I can be a guy that maybe as a junior, or even the second half of my sophomore season, where I'm cool with the first maybe 12 to 18 months of my college career, that I'm gonna have to take it slow. But I don't know, man. It just seems like everything's changed so much that if you have an offer, regardless of the level, you are the level of which the offers that you hold. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it only makes sense, right? I don't know how that eludes people sometimes, because that just seems like common sense to me, right? If you have 5 offers and they are all from a specific level, that should tell you something, right?
Well, and you saw, and maybe you said this, it's instant gratification. So now let's look at it through the lens in which we operate, and that's with youth basketball teams, right? And especially we talked about this at the start of the show of the recruiting calendar. If you're a 16 and 15 and under team, listen, patience has to become your most important virtue for this whole process. Is that, and I tweeted this out, and I strongly believe this, that as if you're a 15 and 16 under team, the best thing that you can do now is to be the best version of a 17 and under you team when that time comes around. So get better, develop fundamental skills. It all goes into these things that we're talking about. What can I do as a college freshman that allows me to stay on the floor? Well, you cultivate that mentality and that road as a 15 and 16 under team. And that's winning games, getting better, developing your skills, and that will come. Now, that doesn't mean that the attention will come, and that's okay, because the focus is so narrow. It's a sniper's view on seniors in high school, if they even get to that point, because the portal matters way more than the high school senior now. So if you're a 15 and 16 U team, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that recruiting calendar doesn't exist the same way that it did 10 years ago. It's a whole different animal.
If you're a 15U team, that recruiting calendar does not exist right now. Not this year. Maybe 16Us are going to start getting some looks later in the year when they can, especially when college coaches can start reaching out in June, reaching out directly.
Right.
But even that's being pushed back. Like, I mean, you and I were both in pretty high level gyms this weekend. We got to see kind of what everything looked like in recruiting landscape. We got to see, some of the most high level college coaches out there doing their thing. When it came time for like the 15U, especially the 15U block of games, that's when it became lunchtime for a lot of college coaches. That's when guys were like, "Hey, do you want to go out and grab a bite to eat?" And I'd be like, "Well, I'm going to go try and watch some guys, try and get some evaluations on some young guys, get at guys, check out some guys early." But the reality of the fact of the matter is that, like, that's not a priority for college coaches right now, and honestly, it really shouldn't be, because there's so much time left in that landscape. Maybe it's a priority to kind of just be like, "All right, yeah, I like this guy. We'll keep checking back in on him," but they're not actually seriously, like, they're not going to offer you and have you commit on the spot. That is not the reality right now.
Here's something to think about.
Go ahead.
Sorry. If you're a player on a 15 and under roster, okay, and your favorite school is North Carolina, okay, North Carolina's current collegiate roster right now on April 24th, 2023, if you're a high school graduate of 26 or 27, the roster for North Carolina when you become a freshman will probably not have one or two players on that thing when you're a high school or when you're a college player. Okay.
Yeah.
So the college coach doesn't even know what his roster is going to look like next year, let alone 3 or 4 years down the road. That's why they're not paying attention, because they are so centrally focused on what's in front of them that the recruiting calendar is not applicable to a player that's a freshman or a sophomore in high school. That is a full-blown fact of recruiting right now. And that's for every level. That's for every level, not just North Carolina. North Carolina A&T, UNC Charlotte, Presbyterian, every school in between. That is the full blown fact of a roster management in college basketball.
Yeah, and this also applies to 16U. I mean, while 16U will be getting some more eyeballs on it, like I mean, if you want to be like, "Oh, we want our 16Us to be recruited," man, you are going to have Cooper Flagg and Cameron Boozer and Caden Boozer on that team, because there are not many college coaches, like, especially at the highest levels, they're going to be flocking to 16U right now. They will get there. I think right now, like, these first few live periods, these first couple months of this summer are more so about kind of building that momentum going into July. And then that's when college coaches in the 16U division will be like, "All right, let's go kind of start getting some early eyes on guys." So everything's being pushed back a little bit. So if you have expectations that you're going to be seen now, push those back a little bit, because everything's changing with the transfer portal taking the spotlight in April.
In order to run a marathon, you have to run mile 7, mile 8, mile 9, mile 10. You have to run the race, okay? You have to be in the race. You finish the race way further away than mile 7, but mile 7 is critical to the totality of what you're doing. And that's how you have to understand the process of where you're at, is that mile 7 really matters, okay? Because it establishes how successful you're going to be on mile 20. Mind you, I've never ran a marathon my entire life, so this analogy may be wrong, but I think that's the best way of really kind of looking at it from afar. You know, I think
yeah, because it is a marathon, and maybe we should host a hoopsie marathon, because I've also never.
Well, I'm not in it. Yeah, I'm definitely not in it. I'm not running that. I'm not a participant. I may be the one that fires the starting gun at the beginning.
Hands out water. You could be the guy that hands out water at mile 7.
Yeah, I'll be the foil. I'll be the foil blanket guy at the end. I'll be the social support. I was going to end it on something, and I'm trying to remember what it was because I felt like it was pretty poignant. I know. It was a funny thought. We talked about this before we got started. So I noticed that Colorado ran their spring football game. This is going to be the new thing in basketball. Colorado ran their spring football game. They had a freshman who came in, was a high-level freshman, had like high major offers from everywhere. He says, Deion Sanders, I'm coming to play for you. I'm coming to Boulder. Goes off in the spring game. Spring game sold out. It's on ESPN. It's trending topic in college sports. The guy goes bananas. He goes off. He enters in the transfer portal on Monday. College basketball, if you're taking a tour to Europe and you bring your freshman, he goes off. Don't be surprised if that dude enters the portal and tries to level up before he even gets to play a game for you. That right there is the microcosm of college athletics.
I cannot wait until that happens in college basketball, to see the older guard kind of their heads explode, and I'll kind of just laugh and just be like, whatever. I mean, it doesn't impact me at all, but like, I just think that'd be so hilarious.
It's going to happen.
I know it is. I just can't wait for it. I'm excited.
What a weird world.
It's a different world, guys. That's the theme of this. It's a different world. Readjust your expectations. And if you're an AAU coach, seriously, if you're an AAU coach, it really benefits you and your players and your parents and whoever to really be keeping up on this stuff, to be abreast of the landscape. The ones who are really benefit their players. They can kind of teach them, like, hey, this is how recruiting is going right now. And like the ones that aren't are just kind of like lost in the dark. They think that John Shire should be out there watching their 12U team right now, when it's like, that's never going to happen. Like, you have to learn, you have to keep up on this stuff. Like, you're only going to, hurt your players. You're going to only hurt your program. You're only going to create false expectations and false narratives if you don't keep up with this stuff.
You got to run the marathon, man. You got to run the marathon. You got to appreciate the value of miles 7, 8, 9, and 10 to understand the reward at the very end, man. It's a total marathon. I'm with you. That's a great way to end it right there, of staying abreast. Hopefully this gave you more value than confusing. I don't know if it did or not, but I hope it did. I hope it helped you. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you make sure you subscribe. If you're watching on Twitter, hit that retweet button. Maybe share this with somebody else. Share this with your parents. Share this with some of your players. Hopefully it gives you some value. Hopefully it gives you some insight. Also, feel free to send us a message or add us or whatever you say on Twitter. I'm happy to have some dialogue about it too. So for Josh Tec, I'm Justin Young. This has been the Fast Break Recruiting Special Extravaganza. I don't know what we're calling it, but it's something. And it was a good conversation, Josh. Appreciate it.